The air was heavy with the smell of damp earth and coming rain, but the atmosphere inside our small house was even thicker, a suffocating silence that had replaced the celebratory shouts of a few hours ago. Claire's smile, once so bright it could outshine the fluorescent lights of the convenience store, had become a thin, cruel line. She stood across the living room from me, not the woman I had spent 8 years building a life with, but a stranger framed by the judgmental stares of her parents. The lottery ticket lay on the coffee table between us, a slip of paper worth $12 million, an obscene amount of money that had shattered our world in the space of a single day. Her father, Charles, cleared his throat, a sound like gravel grinding underfoot. "Arthur," he said, his voice as cold and formal as it had been on the day he made me sign that prenuptial agreement. "Claire has something to tell you." I looked at her, searching for the warmth, the joy, the complicity we had shared just hours before. The moment she had read the number, she'd grabbed my hand, her eyes wide with disbelief, her body trembling with excitement. "We did it, Arthur," she had whispered, pulling me into a hug that smelled of cheap perfume and the future. "We finally did it." But now, standing before me with her chin held high and a new steely glint in her eyes, she was a different person. "I want a divorce, Arthur," she said, her voice flat. "And the money, it's mine. The prenup protects it." The words didn't land. They just hung in the silence, an impossible fiction. My mind replayed the sound of the machine printing our ticket this morning, the shared joke about our lucky numbers, the feel of her hand in mine. 1 month, I thought. A single month. It was all it took for everything to turn to ash. The prize, a moment of shared triumph, was now a weapon she wielded against me, a key to a new life she intended to walk into alone. I looked at her parents, their faces impassive, a verdict already rendered. They hadn't come to celebrate. They had come to reclaim what they believed was theirs. My chest tightened, a cold dread replacing the hopeful dreams that had filled my head all day. The rain hadn't started yet, but a storm had already broken over me, and I was standing in its devastating center. The world had changed, not with a bang, but with the whisper of betrayal, and I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that the game had just begun. The keys felt like a final possession, no longer a symbol of home. I drove aimlessly to a cheap motel where the air was thick with the scent of old desperation. For 3 days I was a ghost, haunted by the memory of a shared life that had been so brutally reduced to a legal transaction. It wasn't just the money. It was the sheer arrogance of the betrayal that finally ignited something hot and hard inside me. I wouldn't just be cast aside. I wouldn't let them win. A friend gave me a name, Mr. Hayes, an old-school lawyer known for his quiet effectiveness. I laid out the prenup I had signed so long ago. As he read it, a faint smile spread across his face. "They protected themselves a little too well," he said, his voice a low rumble. "This clause here, it's airtight. It states that any assets, prizes, or winnings acquired during the marriage shall be considered marital property. They shot themselves in the foot, son." A wave of bitter irony washed over me. The very document meant to protect her family's wealth was now my salvation. The next few weeks were a blur of cold, impersonal legal exchanges. Through her new high-powered lawyer, Claire acted as if she had already won, confident that her family's money and the prenup were an impenetrable fortress. But I saw the truth. Their greed had made them blind. This wasn't just about a lottery ticket anymore. It was about the principle of it all, a battle for the integrity of a love I had believed in. I was ready to face them, ready for the end. The courtroom was a sterile, unforgiving space, all polished wood and hushed whispers. Claire sat at the opposing table, not looking at me, but at some distant point beyond the walls, a queen dethroned but not yet defeated. Her lawyer, a man with a gaze as sharp as a scalpel, began his arguments, laying out her claim with a practiced confidence. He spoke of the lottery ticket as her sole property, an asset protected by a watertight prenuptial agreement. He didn't have to say it, but the message was clear. I was just a bitter man trying to claim what was never mine. Then Mr. Hayes rose. He was not a showman. He spoke quietly, methodically, his voice cutting through the tension. He began with the prenup, reading the clause that once felt like a shackle but was now a key. Any assets, prizes, or winnings acquired during the marriage shall be considered marital property. He recited it, his voice calm and precise. I saw Claire's father, Charles, shift uncomfortably in his seat. They had forgotten their own words, their own rules. But Mr. Hayes wasn't done. He presented the evidence I had so painstakingly gathered, a stack of bank statements showing years of weekly purchases of lottery tickets, all from our joint checking account. He showed the transaction history of the winning ticket, and the final damning piece of evidence, the initial deposit of the winnings into that same account before she moved it to a separate one. Commingling of funds, he announced, a term I now knew was legal poison. It was a slip-up born of haste and overwhelming greed. They hadn't been careful enough. In their rush to take everything, they had left a trail of breadcrumbs for us to follow. The judge, a woman with tired eyes and a stern expression, looked from Claire to me. Her verdict was swift and unemotional. She ruled that the lottery winnings were indeed marital property, citing the very clause Claire's family had insisted upon. The law, she explained, was not a tool for convenience. It was a system of rules that applied to all. She awarded me 50% of the net winnings, half, $4 million. A profound silence filled the room. The moment of victory wasn't a roar of triumph, but a quiet, hollow thud. I looked at Claire. Her facade finally cracked. Her lips trembled. The victory, the money, all of it felt meaningless. I had won the battle, but I had lost a person I no longer knew, a life I would never get back. In just 1 month, the very foundation of my world had been exposed as a fragile illusion. I walked out of that courtroom a rich man, but the emptiness in my gut was a testament to the price of that wealth. The lottery hadn't made her rich. It had revealed who she really was, and in doing so, had destroyed her. The money was a symbol of her loss and a reminder of my own. I was free, but with a knowledge that weighed more than any fortune. Some people will betray everything for a chance at more, but in the end, they lose it all. The world was full of such lessons, and I had just learned the most expensive one of all.